Welcome to another edition of the Fan Perspective. I am your host, Nathan Lyle, and today we are talking about Week 7 in fantasy football. What do we have today? Well, the Falcons, the Broncos, the Chiefs, Dolphins, Eagles, and Chargers all have a bye week, which means some of the top playmakers, Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, Peyton Manning, Demarcus Thomas, Michael Vick, LaShawn McCoy, Jeremy Maclin, and Jamal Charles all have a bye week, and you're going to need some replacements for them. So let's see what running backs, QBs, and possibly even tight ends you could look for. Kevin Kolb out with a rib injury, so John Skelton will be the starter. And this should be great news for fantasy owners because Skelton loves throwing to Larry Fitzgerald. Ahmad Bradshaw has been saying he would play, but he hasn't practiced this week, and Andre Brown has been playing pretty well. So have a backup ready just in case he is held out, or if there is a possibility that he's not going to get as many carries as he normally would want. And on the rise, you have Steven Jackson, who finally looks healthy, and his numbers continue to increase. However, it looks like he's going to be sharing a backfield with Daryl Richardson from now on. So either one of them has upside. I mean, you never know. It could easily turn into one of those Fred Jackson, CJ Spiller situations down there. It's hard to predict right now, though. Richardson could end up falling off, and then Jackson ends up getting all the carries from then on. I really can't tell right now. But in defensive news, I had the Falcons defense as my starters, and something that I found out is that the Browns defense has actually played pretty well. Joe Haden returned from his suspension last week, and during his 4-game absence, the Browns had a total of 17 fantasy points. During the 2 games that he played for them, they had 16 and 19 points, respectively. And they've got a few decent matchups on the horizon, and as I said, with bye weeks and all the turnaround happening on some teams, like with the Ravens' injuries, Cleveland is a good alternative for teams desperate for one good defense, even for just 1 week. And James Jones has had 3 straight games with 2 touchdowns. That will not last forever. But he should continue to see a relatively high volume of targets. Last week it looked like the Cowboys have changed their mindset and are planning to stay dedicated to the run. This obviously increases the value for Demarco Murray. He is currently out with an injury, however, and Felix Jones is going to start in his place. Last week, Felix had over 90 yards and got a touchdown, and this week he goes up against the Panthers, who will be missing Chris Gamble and likely without Jon Beason. In other words, the Cowboys should be scoring a lot of points this week, and Felix should be seeing plenty of touches. And the Cowboys, they've been a shaky team this year, but I don't think you should be afraid to put any of their starters in your lineup right now, just because they're going up against the Panthers. And the Ravens defense, they've already allowed over 200 rushing yards in 2 consecutive games, and now they're playing without Ray Lewis. Haloti Ngata, he expects to play, but he is banged up. So, of course, you always expect Arian Foster to have a huge day. He's the number 1 halfback in fantasy football this season. Ben Tate's workload should increase as well. Right now, I'm not saying it's going to be a huge blowout, but I think the Texans should be able to get a good enough lead that they'll start really pounding it out, and you might see Tate start getting a lot of carries in the 4th quarter, possibly even a goal line touch or 2. Tate, they were expecting them to share the workload. Tate's been disappointing this year, though. Foster's done everything for the team, and Tate's barely even seen the field. But I think if you're going to start him, this has to be the week. And Mike Williams of the Tampa Bay Bucks, he's had double-digit points in 4 out of 6 weeks. Every single game this season, except for 1, he has either gotten a touchdown or had 100 yards receiving. And I expect him to do both this year, both of that against a very weak Saints defense. And with the Falcon Ray Lewis and Ladarius Webb are out for the season. Haloti Ngata and Ed Reed are playing hurt. But Terrell Suggs started practicing again, but it doesn't seem likely that the coach will let him play this soon. You'd rather want to ensure yourself for the playoff stretch. So this defense was already suspect to begin with. But they didn't allow points. They didn't create turnovers. But they did allow a lot of yards. I don't know if they'll be able to continue their current dominance, though. At least, I'm not saying you have to drop them right away, but at least consider other options. And then, of course, I'll just want to mention that Aaron Rodgers, RG3, AJ Green, they all had huge days last week, like they always do. And I expect this to keep going. And Antonio Gates had a tremendous day on Monday night, and it looks like he's back to his must-start status. And to end this week, I would just like to point out that Alfred Morris is currently 4th in fantasy points among running backs. Number 1 is Arian Foster, number 2 is Ray Rice, and number 3 is Frank Gore. I'm putting an asterisk beside Frank Gore because he had a huge game on Thursday night. If you take away the 18 points he scored after already playing this week's game, he's not even in the top 10. He's number 11. So technically, Alfred Morris is the 3rd best halfback in fantasy football this year. And I think that for now, even with all the other factors, RG3, the quarterback, is stealing his touches. And of course you've got Shanahan, so you want to beware Shanahanigans. But I think for right now, Alfred Morris is a very safe start. Well, that's it for this week. Good luck to you. Tune in Tuesday for reflections on Week 7. This has been The Fan Perspective. I'm Nathan Lyle. Happy Sunday.